First time I got claps. That's nice. Okay. Next special presentation is the Emergency Preparedness State of Readiness Report by Jennifer Warmke.
Yep. Sorry about that. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you tonight. And it actually comes for really good timing since we had the State of the City. Now we have our State of Readiness report. So beginning, just to give you guys some information and background on me, I am Jennifer Warmke. I'm the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for the city. I've experience both in the states of Wisconsin and Washington. I've worked numerous presidential disasters. One of those is the third largest tire fire in the world, the Watertown tire fire. I also worked one of the largest fires in the state of Washington, which was the Okanagan complex in 2014. I've also worked some not so small ones, which includes the Main Street fire, which was just last year. So when I'm not working disasters, I'm responsible for planned maintenance, regional collaboration and coordination, the city readiness and preparedness, training, and disaster response. But it's important to note that I could not do all of this without a highly trained team of enabling forces. And I'd like to recognize them tonight, so if you would stand to get your proper recognition. Our Emergency Coordination Center directors are Bob Van Horn, Carol Cummings, and Aaron Lenhart. Our planning section chief is Dean Perez. Our logistics section chiefs are Jacqueline Brandenburg and Virginia Samuelson. Finance section chiefs are Tammy Shackman and Ted Rainin. Our operations section chiefs are Nick Stroop, Henry Simon, and Butch Noble. And then I also have numerous other city staff that are a huge support to us, including our public information officer, Barbara, our IS staff, our GIS staff, and several scribes. And I would not be able to accomplish nearly as much as I can without the help of all of them. So thank you all. So what did we accomplish? Well, in 2016, we got quite a bit of stuff done. So we sent an emergency preparedness mailer out to approximately 20,000 city residents. So we reached quite a few people with this mailer. You all have a sample at your desk. I also have some out at the front table for anyone in the audience that would like to see those. We created an emergency preparedness flip chart for all of our city employees. We did community emergency response training for 21 participants. Now these first 3 items were all through the help of an emergency management performance grant, which is a federal grant program. We also collaborated and secured Code Red, which is basically a reverse 911 system at no cost to the city for city residents, both in King and Snohomish counties, and for our city employee notifications. So if we were to have an incident like the Main Street fire where we had a main street shut down and we were trying to get city employees in, we could do a call out to them just internally telling them what streets we needed them to take or where to report. We did numerous presentations. Cops and Clergy was one. We also partnered with FEMA to do the Greater Bothell Chamber of Commerce. And then we partnered with FEMA again to do a virtual tabletop on an active shooter at campus in which we involved both the UW-Bothell and North Shore School District. Each month we hold position-specific trainings. Those are for our ECC staff. We had several staff participate in our Cascadia Rising event, which was quite a large undertaking. So we actually sent staff to several places throughout the county. We had 2 ECC activations this year. One was obviously for the Main Street fire and another one was for our October windstorm. And then we set up a business assistance recovery team for those Main Street businesses that were affected by the fire. And that resulted in a Small Business Association EIDL, which is an Economic Injury Disaster Loan Declaration. But we're not done. We have a lot of goals and actions that we want to take in this coming year. So one of those is to continue with our monthly position-specific training. Another one is to do incident action plan training, of which we're pulling in a subject matter expert from Seattle Office of Emergency Management, and we're actually doing this next week. We're going to have continuity of government and operations plans training, and we're going to deconflict our internal plans. We're going to have emergency coordination Coordination Center functional exercise, and this is going to actually involve a shift change where we run 2 different shifts through our ECC. We're going to provide disaster kits for all city staff, and we're going to maintain all of our emergency management plans, which are quite a few, and then we're actually going to assist with a regional long-term recovery plan. So, and I like to keep things short and sweet. So basically, how can you help? I encourage everyone to be personally prepared. That's the best thing that you can do, is to prepare yourself. So make your plan, build your kit. If you need to know how, I'm happy to help you out. And sign up for, if you're a citizen, King County Alerts, which is a regional alert system. And for everybody that's within the city, if you sign up for Bothell Alerts, you'll get more personalized alerts there. So emergency management is a collaborative and coordinated effort. It involves not only government, but also nonprofit and private sectors. So we have to reach out to a lot of people, and I encourage everybody to stay involved, whether it's the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts or, you know, high-powered businesses. Everybody can help each other out in a disaster. And I guess the last thing would be just to continue to support emergency management in your first responder community and our great team of people that help me on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you entertain some questions, maybe? Is there, it's Councilmember Sandberg.
So can you give the public a little bit more information about signing up for the Bothell alerts? I know it's here on the mailer that people received.
Yeah.
Because we're not in a major disaster like an earthquake. You might not have access to your computer or television, but you might have access to your phone. That's probably your most likely access point. So
yes, so Bothell Alerts works as a reverse 911 system, and what you can do is you can go online to the emergency management page, and you can actually go through the process and sign up there. And what it does is, if there is a regional disaster, you will actually get an alert ping to your phone to warn you about where that disaster is. So the great thing about this is you can enter in multiple addresses. So you can put in your own, and say you have an elderly parent or even, you know, siblings or children in another area. You can also enter in their address. So if something happens there, you kind of know what's happening with them as well.
Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next on our agenda is the review of upcoming public engagement opportunities. First one is Coffee with a Cop, Saturday, June 21st from 10:30 to noon at the Tully's Coffee at 22615 Bothell Edward Highway. The next is the Community Resources Day, Friday, January 27th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Cascadia College, Mobius Hall. The address is 18345 Campus Way, Northeast Bothell. The last is Community Conversations, which is Thursday, February 2nd from 1:15 p.m. and on in the City Hall rooms 107 and 108, just next door to the council chambers. So next is the review of the projected agenda. Is there any requests or changes to the projected agenda? Councilmember Sandberg.
Can you tell me if we ever decided whether or not to completely disband the Shorelines Hearings Board, or if that was a discussion that we were going to have this year? Because we are currently accepting applications through February 17th for our boards and commissions, but we haven't advertised for the Shorelines Hearings Board. And I think that there's a comprehensive plan update coming, and I wasn't clear what was the status with the Shorelines Hearings Board.
You know, I don't remember for sure. Yep. Could you answer that question?
Absolutely. Council has given direction that they wish to transfer the Shoreline Hearing Board activities to the Planning Commission. That has not taken place, hasn't taken effect in municipal code yet, but we can add it to any of the code amendments that that the council would prioritize this year to do that. The other, and we don't have any real business anticipated for the Shoreline Hearing Board. Our next update will begin in 2018, and for a 2019 adoption of a new shoreline master program.
That's it for, did you want to put that on the projected agenda for the council to discuss, or? Not right now, okay. Councilmember Freed.
I see that we're going to be meeting on January 24th, but it's only for 45 minutes. Is it possible to change these items to a different night?
City Manager, I'll put you on the spot. Is there any time-sensitive items on that agenda that need to happen that date, or can we move it to February 4th, which is another, looks like, very short meeting?
That's the council retreat, the 4th.
Oops,
It could
sorry.
be on the 7th.
Mr. Mayor, the complete streets ordinance is time-sensitive, needs to occur on that date. It's
Okay.
in order, what was it's for grant money, yeah, approximately $500,000. So that one does need to be on that date, or before the 26th.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like we do need to meet that day. Be short. Any other items for the projected agenda review? Seeing none, we'll move into the consent agenda. So we've already had, lost my cheat sheet. We already had AB 17-016, AB 17-017, and AB 17-019 removed from the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Agnew, seconded by Councilmember McNeil. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, go ahead, place your vote.
I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not showing up on the screen, but it did pass 6-0.
Okay, passes unanimously with Councilmember Spivey absent and excused. So the first item, AB 17-016, construction contract for 228th Street and Southeast, 228th Street Southeast and 29th Drive Southeast traffic signal and intersection improvements. Councilmember Sandberg.
Thank you. I asked that this be pulled so that staff could just provide a brief presentation. We've received a lot of comment from the public about traffic on 228th, and so I think this is an opportunity to highlight what construction improvements we're doing and what the timeline for that is, and then also as an educational point to see how much projects like this actually cost, and and then also give kudos to the city, because a large portion of the cost of design and construction has been offset by a federal grant that staff successfully secured for us. So that's why I took it off the agenda. I don't have any specific questions, but I'm sure the public is interested in this.
Okay, good evening, council members. The 228-29 traffic signal and the intersection improvement project is to add a new signal to the existing intersection. So the anticipated construction date is April 1st, 2017, and the anticipated completion days will be June 1st, 2017. So the total construction working day would be about 45 days. Total construction cost is estimated to be about $550,000, and the total project cost will be $737,000 altogether. The city has received federal grant in the amount of $432,000, and city contribution is about $305,000 coming from traffic impact fee.
Thank you. And I, a lot of times people, they see a project, they drive by it, they go, oh, that's a traffic light. That probably costs $50,000. Well, it doesn't. These projects are incredibly expensive, and I think it's important for the public to understand the price tag associated with a lot of the improvements that we do. They're necessary, but they're a lot more expensive than we think they might be. So thank you. And with that, I'll move the recommended action. Okay.
Councilmember Freed.
Great, thank you for coming this night. I appreciate it. Here you says it's the lowest responsive bid. What's the difference between responsive and responsible?
The responsive bid, basically, we check all the documentation, and if they meet all the requirements, then we will consider they are responsive.
Okay. Do we take into consider responsible contractors?
No, we only review the documentation. If they meet all the requirements, then we consider only responsive.
So we're not allowed to take into consideration the quality of each of these contractors and if they've, in past contracts, been responsible and completed their work?
Typically, we will do background check when we receive the bid. So the first step is to review all the documentation and make sure that all the numbers, all the requirements have been met. Then secondly, we will do the background check to verify the contractor's past performance.
Okay. I mean, do we have a city standard that the contractors should both be responsive and responsible?
I'm not 100% sure.
So I could maybe help out a little bit while Steve's walking up, but how the bidding process works, as far as I understand, per state law, is you have to select the lowest bid financially, not responsible, but the lowest responsive bid. Do you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add briefly. I'm Jason Torrey with the Capital Programs Group. So all the contractors that bid on the public works contracts have to be pre-qualified with WashDOT's standards and specifications. We also check their debarment, if they've paid their taxes and if they have any liens against them and that sort of thing. And that's some of the documentation Rita was speaking to when we check their documentation. So most small agencies don't have any requirements above and beyond the WashDOT pre-qualification, and we just generally go with that. And it's a pretty low risk element for public contracting.
Okay, my understanding of state law is they have to be both responsive and responsible.
Sure.
And so you're saying prior vetting has occurred with the registration with the state. And so I think it would be helpful not just to say we're taking the lowest bid that's submitted, but actually say that we as a city accept them as responsive and responsible.
Sure. And when we say responsive, that also means they have been past those qualifications as well as part of the responsiveness.
Okay.
So that's, but
Do you
a good
think
point to add language to the contract.
That'd be helpful to me. I wonder for others as well, just to see both of those.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You want to do your motion?
Move the recommended action.
It's moved and seconded to, 1 second, I gotta get back to the page here. Authorize the city manager to enter into a construction contract with Cayman's Construction in the amount of $421,394.37 for construction of the 228th Street Southeast and 29th Drive Southeast traffic signal and intersection improvements. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, place your vote.
I'm only showing, okay, I'm short one. Somebody didn't vote yet. There we go. Thank you. It's not, I don't know why it's not showing. It passed 6-0.
Passes unanimously with council members 5B absent and excused. Now we're on to AB 17-017, which is to suspend recording on the February 4th, 2017 council retreat. Councilmember Sandberg.
I pulled this agenda item because I do not want to suspend the recording of the council retreat. I think in the interest of having open and transparent government, it would be nice to have this recorded. Oftentimes, members of the public feel like they need to come and hand video record us, and so they wouldn't need to do that if we recorded the meeting. So if there is a motion, I will be voting against it.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the item, or is there a motion? I'll second it. So it's moved and seconded to, there it is, authorize, no, that's the wrong one. Yeah, to suspend recording, the recommended action is to suspend recording for the February 4th, 2017 council retreat. Is there any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor?
I would be interested in understanding why we don't record it, if there's a cost associated with it, or some other reason behind it.
So we have a motion on the floor. We can't really
Well,
past
you,
that.
discussion, that's my concern. I don't understand the cost associated.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Councilmember Freed?
In the 12 years, or I guess 11 years that I've been on council, we've never recorded a council retreat as I recall. And the purpose is we have a very formal process up here. And the nice idea about the council retreat, it's a more informal conversation. The public is certainly invited to come to that discussion, listen in. So the idea of not recording is not to keep any secrets. It's never been that. We have a very open, transparent process. All of us believe in that, and every council I've been on for 11 years has believed in that as well. It's just to allow more of a free flow of conversation. Also in regards to the financial aspect of it, it would require somebody from tech to be there to make sure that we have proper recording devices throughout the room so each person can hear, and that is being monitored throughout the day. So there is a cost savings.
Any further discussion on the motion? I will also support the motion. I think it's important that the council does have some time without a video recording and a microphone in our faces to communicate amongst ourselves. There's zero decisions made during the council retreat, but it is time for us to try to do some team building and to talk with each other freely. And I think it's really an important thing. Again, like Councilmember Freed said, you're more than welcome to be there. I know it's a Saturday. We're sacrificing our Saturday as well, but it's really important to us as a group to be able to communicate freely. So that's what we're going to. Any other discussion on the motion? See none, place your vote.
Passes 4-2. I cannot tell who voted no.
We can go auto. Raise your hand and say aye if you pass the motion. Aye. Nays? So let the record show we have.
4-2 with the council members McNeil and Sandberg in the negative.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. The last one is the AB 17-019, which is the interlocal agreement with Snohomish County Health District per capita contribution for health district services. Councilmember Sandberg, you pulled this as well?
Yes, thank you. The last time I pulled it, we were going to get some more information about the sale of the Rucker building that the Snohomish Health District owns and is selling, and I was briefed on what that status is. I'm not sure if everybody else knows what the status is, and maybe our legal staff can, our attorney can provide that explanation. And then I was looking at the agreement. It doesn't look like there was any word changes associated with the interlocal agreement, and I had expressed my interest in specifying language regarding help with heroin and opioid addiction. And since we have a heroin and opioid addiction action plan stated as one of our goals, and Snohomish Health District is one of the few agencies that can help us draft and deliver on that goal, I would like that language to be present in the document. I know that they provide general health services, but I personally would like to see that articulated. If inspecting septic systems is articulated, I think that we could ask that opioid addiction services and action planning could also be added as specific language.
City Attorney, you want to take it from there?
Absolutely. So this is information that I actually received from Mayor Room last Wednesday, who attended a presentation in the Rucker building. And so essentially it is, on the back of the information I received from Mayor Room is the estimated contributions to the initial financing and capital improvements. And it shows that Bothell in the years of 1990 through 1995 contributed approximately $30,000. It was $30,101, which represents 0.33% of the total value of the building. So my understanding from Councilmember Sandberg is that there was a resolution to sell the building and then to ask the contributing agencies not to request their funds back. And in speaking with Mayor Room, he indicated that the city is not on any of the deeds for the building. And so if we were to try to recoup the $30,000 that we put in the early 90s, that we would need to initiate a lawsuit. Initiating a lawsuit, generally with all the discovery that goes along with it, ballpark figure is usually about $50,000. So to recover the $30,000, because we don't have a deed that we could then simply capitalize on, we would need to initiate the lawsuit that would, in all likelihood, eat up the sum that we would gain and get returned. And then regarding the specific language, we can always make a motion, I believe.
I was just going to mention to you that the district called today and mentioned that they're working with different cities in Snohomish County to provide a more refined scope of work. They understand that that paragraph is fairly loose, and there are several cities that would like to tighten it up, each in their own way. So we have the room to work with the district to kind of address opioid addiction-specific matters. And they are on the hook to report quarterly. They understand that, and they've offered this service.
Ask a question.
So just a clarifying question real quick is, so you think we should approve this interlocal, you'd recommend that we'd approve the interlocal agreement without that additional scope because it's forthcoming later, or do you think we should wait?
No, I think it would be good to approve it now, and we'll work on the scope.
Councilmember Zamberg, is that okay? Just real quick to add to what the city attorney said, one of the things they did point out to us is that we did help with the initial purchase of the record building, the $30,000 that we invested, but we never have paid for any of the maintenance and upkeep, so the actual value of the building might potentially not be ours as well. It's kind of like if you owned an apartment complex and you charge people to replace their windows kind of thing. Like it's just, it's a little awkward. So there was a difference of opinion amongst the cities that were there, the Snohomish County cities that were there. Some that were going to get that invested $4,000 in it, they wanted every penny back. To people that paid $250,000 and they don't want any of it back. They just want to sign the deed and let their interest go in the building. So I just thought I'd add that little bit to what the city attorney said. Okay, so is there a motion on the floor?
I'll move the recommended action.
Second.
It's moved by Councilmember Sandberg, seconded by the Deputy Mayor to authorize the city manager to execute the interlocal agreement with Snohomish County Health District in the amount of $22,000. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Do you want to go audible or you want to try it?
We can try it. It shows up here. It just doesn't show who voted how.
Then we have to trust you, though.
Passed 6-0. Thank you.
Passed unanimously with Councilmember Spivey absent and excused. Next on the agenda is the visitor comment section period. Sorry. I don't have my little cheat sheet handy quite yet. Okay. So I read this at the beginning of every public comment period. Each person addressing the council will give his or her name in an audible tone of voice for the record, and unless the council grants further time, shall limit the address to 3 minutes. All remarks will be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. No person other than the council and the person having the floor will be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through a member of the council, without the permission of the mayor. And I have one sign-up sheet, which is... First name's Bob. Rohrbaugh?
Good enough.
All right. You can correct me. I won't be offended.
My name is Bob Rohrbaugh. Do you want my address?
No, that's fine. We have it. Go
All
ahead.
right. Just a recent observation. My wife and I came to vibrant downtown Bothell on Sunday morning to make a hefty deposit in the BECU Bank. And alas, there was no parking available, which surprised me. Either a lot of people were having coffee or brunch at the restaurant or standing in line to make deposits. And we circled the block because my wife has a fused ankle and really can't walk any distance, like from the parking garage here. So we circled the block and nobody had moved. And then I noticed that all the cars were cold and covered with dew, exhibit 1 or 2 in the 5x7 photo. So I let her out at the bank and circled the block again, looked more closely at the sign, and it said 2-hour parking, except Sundays. To borrow a line from a movie or to misappropriate a line from a movie, build parking and they will come. I would think that there was one customer in the coffee shop. I stuck my head in there. I know the owners and said, is it always this sparse on a Sunday morning that you'd sell 1 cup of coffee at a time? They said it's really bad. And there hasn't been much parking enforcement on the right-hand side of the little parking strip opposite City Hall. So I just wanted to say we were between a rock and a hard place. We accomplished our transaction, but I'd love to see a vibrant downtown Bothell 7 days a week. So I'm just saying the vigilante in me would tape over the except Sundays, but more appropriate that I come to you and say, could we scratch out the except Sundays so that it's 2-hour parking for people making bank deposits, having coffee, walking about town, or going to brunch at the restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are timely. You did see on the agenda that we're going to be talking about parking enforcement next? Yes. Okay, good. That's my only sign-up sheet. Is there anybody else that would like to give comment? Mr. Bain, or Dr. Bain, sorry.
Okay, I'm David Bain, and I'd like to address two different matters. One is the inclusive city concept, and I think there are two important elements to that. One is everybody in this country has Fifth Amendment rights against testifying against themselves, and I'm pleased to see that our police department has a policy against asking immigrants to do that. And I would like to see the city apply that standard to all its other departments and maybe go so far as to incorporate that in union contracts so that employees know that there may be consequences if they violate the rights of people within the city. The second important element is the prevention of hate. And while immigrants would be the ones whose Fifth Amendment rights need to be protected, all people within the city need to be protected because all of us are going to be different in some way from everybody else, whether it's religion or color of the skin or languages we prefer to speak or, sexual orientation, whatever. So I think city saying that, hate speech is not welcome here, and that groups trying to watch out for each other should get the support of city. For example, we might make meeting rooms available for them. So I encourage you to move forward on the inclusive city concept and ask you to include those two elements in it. The other point I'd like to address is the Shoreline Hearing Board, and that was eliminated a couple years ago, and I would encourage you to reinstate that. I think last year when you were working on the Fitzgerald area, having people with expertise in shorelines available to consult with you could have expedited that process. We also have some major planning coming up on the Wayne Golf Course, hopefully, and having a Shorelines Hearing Board to engage in the restoration of the river in that area, I think would also be valuable to the city. So you may want to get that started before the next shoreline master plan update's required. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney, are you still collecting people or collecting comments, I'm sorry, from people on the inclusion?
I am.
Proclamation? Okay.
Yep.
Or it's not a proclamation, it's a resolution?
It's a resolution. We had to move it incidentally to the 7th because at the last hearing, by the time that the agenda packet was due to council on Friday, I'd only received one comment, and I knew based on public participation that there were people that were going to want to contribute to the process, and so we made the decision to move to the 7th. Since then, I think I've received no less than 10 more emails recommending language and various positions on the issue. So we're looking forward to compiling those and presenting those to you on the 7th.
Okay, it's not on our projected agenda, so you have that updated.
I'll have to defer to Madam Clerk on that.
Is it there?
It's on for February 7th. We changed the name to Equity and Inclusiveness Resolution. Item number 11 on February 7th.
Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to provide public comment? Seeing none, we'll go into our study session. So AB 17-021, the downtown parking management, and we have Mr. David Boyd with the Planning Department.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just have a brief presentation. I also just got a message from our parking consultant, Stephanie Herstein, with Transpo. She had an earlier meeting this evening and was hoping that we would be coming on at 7:30 as the agenda called for, but she says she will be here in 15 minutes. So she should be available to answer questions, and I'll try to do my best to explain the work that they've been doing to date. So tonight's updates, and this is basically just an update on what we have been doing with regard to parking, is to fill you in on the ongoing parking counts and analysis, to also talk to you about our ongoing analysis of parking enforcement options, and third, to address, again, paid parking lot regulations, as that's an issue that has continued to come up for us. So the map here on the screen is a map of the study area for the on-street parking counts that Transpo has been doing. And it shows the different types of parking, 2-hour parking, 15-minute parking, some 1-hour parking, and then blocks with either temporary closures or no parking allowed. Just to give a little bit of background before we get further into the parking counts, we had a study session on July 12th and a July 19th public meeting, which covered the following: background material from previous plans and studies, including some from other jurisdictions. This is a page out of our downtown plan, downtown transportation needs analysis, and the 2009 downtown parking study. We've looked at Kirkland's downtown parking plan, Redmond's parking strategies project, and also related to parking is the work that we've been doing with King County on and the City of Woodinville and the campus on alternative transit services that would help reinforce some of our and perhaps help alleviate some of our parking issues. And we've had a discussion before council to date on both how we could do parking enforcement and who would do parking enforcement. How, in terms of what the strategy would be, whether it be an aggressive cost recovery mode or a more educational mode, an ambassador approach that is more focused on getting voluntary compliance. And the who was addressed in the September 6th public hearing when council did pass an ordinance allowing limited commissions for parking enforcement. So that will enable us to either contract with a private contractor to do on-street parking enforcement, or to hire public service officers to do that, police service officers to do that. We did address at that time temporary parking lots as a primary use, temporary paid parking lots as a primary use. Council chose not to move forward with that. And we discussed an interim change to the parking requirements for private development, which was passed pending the completion of this study and a more permanent parking requirement change. And also at that meeting, you were presented with another piece of background information, related background information, the University of Washington Bothell parking utilization study that was also done by the Transpo group, who is working with us on this project. Work to date and ongoing. I presented to you at past meetings kind of a broad array, and this is just a small part of the different parking issues that we're dealing with, or that are addressed in our downtown plan and other work documents. Transpo continues to develop and analyze the parking utilization data and advise us on parking issues that come up. Their contract has been extended to the end of March for the same $25,000 that was appropriated or authorized. And staff is working on a number of quick fixes and some not so quick fixes and addressing ongoing issues as they arise. So here's an updated process and schedule of the work showing where we are now in early January with this check-in. Following this meeting, we are scheduled to bring it back for further discussion at the council retreat on February 4th. And then we anticipate following that sometime in March, not necessarily right at the beginning of March, follow-up council meeting, provided the council does want to move forward with any amendments at that time or other actions that would require a public hearing. One thing I want to mention with regard to the parking counts, one reason that has taken longer than anticipated is that council did indicate that they wanted us to explore options to save money, and we found out that King County was doing some update of their right-size parking study dealing with residential parking. And by waiting, we were able to piggyback on their research, and they've done counts for residential developments while Transpo is doing the counts for the on-street parking. So just I want to give you a quick snapshot of this, and if Stephanie arrives, she can go into it in more detail and answer questions after my presentation. But these are the counts, graphic depiction of the counts that show on the right side of the hand side the weekday average on the top and peak occupancy downtown. So where you see the red areas, those are areas that have 85% occupancy or more. So the goal is to have, ideally you're looking to have say 75 to 85%. You want, if you have too many empty spaces, you're just not attracting enough businesses for you don't have a thriving downtown. If you have above 85% occupancy, then people are having difficulty finding parking spaces, as we just heard. So as might be expected, there is a high occupancy rate around the Six Oaks project, where we've certainly been hearing of issues. In terms of the average occupancy, there's high occupancy along Main Street, and also there's fairly high occupancy on 103rd and 104th, as well as along the south side of the City Hall block. When you go to the peak occupancy periods, those high occupancy indications expand beyond those, but are still kind of centered on those areas. Then on the left is a diagram showing the parking duration. All of these areas have at least a 2-hour time limit, and if not lower. And as you can see, we have much longer durations than that around Six Oaks and on some of our other downtown streets. Again, on 103rd Avenue does stand out there. Then we also did weekend parking counts. The results were similar. Again, high occupancy around Six Oaks on portions of Main Street and 103rd and 104th. And again, relatively long durations, again, around Six Oaks. And the longer durations tend to be away from Main Street, so we're actually getting good turnover in the Main Street area, which is a good sign, good compliance with those. But I think one thing that's happening, we don't really have direct data to show this, but I think employees and owners of downtown businesses tend to park on the streets further away from from the core, and that may be part of the reason for the longer duration there. And then these are the numbers from the King County study, which show, I'm going to focus over here on the parking rate at the right-hand side of the table there. That, and these were done for the 104 apartments, the Village at Beardsley Crossing, and 6 Oaks. At the 104 and 6 Oaks, we were also able to analyze the on-street parking around those developments. We did not do on-street counts around Beardsley Crossing, but that's one of the recommended counts to do as we analyze and kind of fill in the gaps in the data. But as you can see, the number of spaces per bedroom, which we've used that since that is how the downtown plan, what the requirement is based on, it's 0.75 per bedroom, are similar, and or when you add in the on-street parking, a little bit higher than our requirement. So that's the first nugget of information that is directly relevant and will help us formulate a recommendation as we move forward on this for changing that requirement. And we have been joined by Stephanie Herstein, so fortunately she'll be here to answer questions on that. I also just wanted to touch on phased parking enforcement. I didn't include this spreadsheet in your packet because frankly it's not quite ready, but I know that some of you saw a version of this on the whiteboard upstairs. So we are working on identifying the costs associated with doing both an ambassador model parking enforcement program and a more aggressive hard cost recovery method. And they both have significant costs, and these are costs, are monthly costs. In both of these cases, they both assume that we will be able to work out arrangements with some of the private developments that have gotten credit for their on-street parking towards their commercial parking requirement to contribute to this. We would have to have the contract if it is done through a private contract, but we could get contributions from private entities. Those discussions are ongoing. And then finally, at the bottom is an analysis of what it would cost to establish paid parking as an option. We don't know that we're at that. The usual progression is that cities, as they begin experiencing this kind of growth and these kind of parking issues, is you start with enforcement and move to a paid parking system later. But just for analysis, we did, and these are all of these are based on starting with just a 2-block area. And the kiosk system, you really couldn't just do paid parking in 2 blocks because then people would avoid that and it would cause impacts on the rest of downtown. But just to have apples to apples costs, these are based on a 2-block area. But we definitely need to refine these figures further. They do include numbers for the additional court costs that would be incurred, and that has other implications, and we hope to be able to present that a little bit more fully at the council retreat and get some direction from you about directions that you would like us to take this further. And then finally, we have had continuing issues with paid parking lots, private property owners who are wanting and have established paid parking lots. Our code doesn't currently allow that. And so we have had to issue cease and desist orders when that happens. But it indicates that there is a desire for that from property owners, a desire to use surplus parking when their properties are vacant, awaiting construction, or if they have surplus parking for the current uses, or for after-hours uses. What we have determined is the code does allow them to lease parking to other adjacent permitted uses, but we don't have anything in our code that allows them to charge on an hourly basis. One example, one aspect of this is, the city currently has surplus parking in our city garage. It's perfectly acceptable and for the city to provide that for free, but the question is whether it's reasonable for us to expect private property owners to do the same if they have surplus parking. So we would like council to direct staff to take another look at this and come back to you with some code amendments, perhaps with some tweaks to what we had proposed before. So finally, next steps, we're open to questions from council, both to myself and to Stephanie. Tonight's process, although it's a study session, if council wishes to take public testimony, there may be members of the public here that would like to provide that. And then we're hoping to have some discussion and direction to staff on the issues raised tonight and items to bring back and specific requests for any analysis that you'd like us to bring back at the retreat. And then besides the issues that we brought up tonight, I just wanted to, any input you have on the ongoing parking management work that we're doing, the collection of additional parking data, and continuing work on the quick fixes, development of an overall parking management plan and program that goes well beyond just the three items that I brought to you tonight. And then we're looking at, as I said before, when we were talking about the timeline, bringing back recommendations for more permanent parking regulations for private development in March, most likely.
So without knowing what David said, Mrs. Herstein, would you like to, would you have the ability to go through the graphics that he showed? And you'll probably repeat some of what he said, but he said you might have some better perspective, I guess, on what they are illustrating.
Yeah.
The average peak and
So,
duration for weekday and then weekend.
Okay, so these are the weekday graphics. So the larger one on the left is telling you average duration, so how long vehicles are staying on the block. We did our study from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., so capturing kind of the midday to evening period. You'll note during the week around the Six Oaks area, there's longer stays than some of the kind of downtown core area along Main Street. The stays are generally under 2 hours there. So this gives us an idea of if people are adhering to the 2 hour or the 1 hour or whatever the parking time limit is signed for. So the blocks along 104th, those don't have a time limit, and you'll notice that people are staying a while on there. And some of the longer stays are probably residents or also employees parking on the street. And then the shorter stays are likely your visitors to the area. And then the two graphics, the occupancy graphics, we have average and peak. So this is telling you how many vehicles are parked on the block during an hour on average. The red indicates that they're pretty much full. Typically, we look at kind of 75 to 85% as kind of a comfortable on-street parking occupancy. It means that there's 1 to 2 spaces per block so that as people are driving around, they can usually find a spot.
So when you get occupancies over 85%, it's a lot more difficult to find space. And so a lot of what this data is confirming that when people say they have difficulty finding on-street parking, well, they probably are, because you'll see during the peak period, it's most of the blocks are red, so it's pretty full. And then we also did a weekend study. This was a Saturday. We did the same hours, 11 to 7 p.m. On the weekend, actually, the vehicles were staying not quite as long. So that's probably a good indication that there may be office employees parking on street during the week. And then we also have the occupancy graphics as well. And the weekend is not as full, which may also coincide with less employees maybe parking on street. Did you have any questions about this graphic or this table specifically? I will note that, and Dave probably mentioned that we didn't have on-street parking for Beardsley, so while the rate per bedroom is only 0.5, it's probably a little bit higher if people are parking on street.
Okay, thank you. So does council have questions for Mr. Boyd? Councilmember McNeil.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Dave. You had mentioned the paid parking lot. We don't have anything in our code right now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that mainly downtown, or is that citywide?
We don't, in either the downtown code or the citywide code, we don't have provisions for paid parking lots.
Okay, so if in alternative parking situations, for like park and rides, et cetera, the use maybe of churches, things like that, is that something that they can do, or is that something that we would need to make an accommodation for them to be able to do that?
Well, the code does allow any use to provide its parking either on-site or off-site with some sort of covenant or some sort of agreement that tells us that, yes, there is parking for those uses. So because of that, we do allow property owners that have surplus parking to lease their parking to approved uses. We just don't have anything in the code that allows them to put up a pay box or a pay by phone system and charge the public hourly for parking. And that's what we think in certain circumstances, and it can be pretty limited. We think that that is something that's we're going to continue to have property owners looking to do that, either when they're between tenants or in cases when they see a demand for their parking after hours, after their business hours. So we're looking for this as this is a tool that we see could be used to help alleviate the shortage of parking that we're experiencing right now, and work cooperatively with property owners to do that.
And could that also go in the direction of parking for park and rides as well?
It could, in theory, and in fact, another study that King County is doing is they're looking at residential projects within proximity to park and rides where they might enter into agreements with those property owners to use that capacity that's there that isn't being used during the day for the most part, and actually lease that out for park and ride parking. So that's something King County is taking the lead on. We're watching that effort and looking at that. But that might be, but that would be in a situation where the park and ride is a legally established use. King County could legally lease a block of parking from a surplus parking from a adjacent residential development, and that would be allowed. It's the hourly parking that just isn't covered by the code, and that we're finding property owners are interested in doing, and we're having to engage in parking wars over situations where they've done it, and have ruffled feathers of neighbors, and so we'd like to find a solution where we can manage that situation through a legally allowed paid parking provision.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Hi, Dave. So my memory of us agreeing not to, or voting not to support the permit parking was because of our fear that, for instance, the shag development, it would only pay them basically for not moving forward with their development. So I guess I'm wondering, do you have any evidence that that's true or not true? What's the status on the shag development? I know they demolished the building.
My understanding is they are planning to start construction this spring. I don't know if Director Burdett has any more detailed information. No.
That's correct. They will be beginning construction this spring. That's not an issue anymore with that particular development. I'd be happy to comment on the two options for paid parking if the council would like some extra input.
That's fine with me.
I think the two options before the city are to look at paid parking as a temporary use, and we would codify that as part of temporary uses within our municipal code, which would have some criteria and would have some time, place, and manner sort of requirements where they would run only for a certain period of time or a certain sequence of events, and the city can control that so that it's sort of used as an interim use. The other option is a permanent change to the code that would allow commercial parking. We would define that use and allow it in certain commercial zones. That has a little different impact. It could be regulated as well in terms of standards for landscaping and management of stormwater runoff and all the other attributes that go in with a parking lot. Both sort of have their positives and negatives. I think the interim use or the temporary use is something that would help to alleviate some of our congestion problems. And I'd at least, and Dave and I have talked about this quite a bit, and we think that's a good place to start with commercial parking, and we can put in a definition for that as well. I don't know that there are that many property owners, given the real estate values within Bothell, that will really find it that lucrative to rent out parking stalls and still be able to make a profit with the value of the real estate. It would take a long amortization period. So I don't even think a permanent is going to last that long, especially with the demand for development and the commanding of values of the real estate in our region. But we could certainly try one as a temporary, see how it goes, and then continue to monitor it and come back in a subsequent year and look at a more permanent solution if you wanted to add it as a permitted use.
Thanks for that explanation. That's actually very helpful to me. I had one other question. I had forwarded an email looking for some numbers on the possible deficits that are coming with the Mercantile apartment building as well as the Junction. And I know you haven't had time, but I wondered if you had any information regarding those two buildings and the possibility of more parking deficits.
I do have information on what those buildings, the number of units they have, the number of bedrooms they have, and the number of parking required. I haven't had a chance since getting your email this morning to put together that information, but I'll certainly bring it to the council retreat. We're not looking to permit deficits in parking, and one thing that we have done, learned from the experience with Six Oaks, is they did request and were granted both shared parking and green building reductions in their parking requirement, and we're not doing that on projects going forward. So I'm quite confident that we'll find that the number of spaces per bedroom is going to be higher on both of those projects, as well as other projects that are in the permitting pipeline. So we'll provide that information.
So you will discuss other projects aside from those two?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason we focused on these three for the counts is that they're the only ones that we can actually do counts on, the only ones that are built and occupied. I also wanted to just add one other thing on the paid parking lot issue, and this was a comment that I got from the parking contractor who listened in on that September 6th meeting but wasn't able to attend or testify. But one thing that he emphasized was that he sees it as a benefit, a service that he's providing, an option that he's providing to people who are coming downtown and having trouble finding parking spaces. So rather than just a benefit to the property owners or the parking management firms. So he sees an interest in that, and I think during the periods when they have had those parking lots set up, anybody who observed those saw that they were mostly empty, but there were some people who were willing to pay for that parking. So,
great, thank you so much.
Councilmember Agnew.
Well, I'm certainly glad that we learned from Six Oaks. The question I have for you is, there's a little church just down the street from here that right now told all of its parishioners, if they come in during the weekday, to come into the office and get a parking permit and put it on your dashboard, because they don't have any parking stalls for the people that are coming to the church. Now, it's the first time in 131 years the church has done anything like that. What are we going to do to help them out?
So I guess I'm not quite understanding the situation.
The situation is that at a church right now, the parking lot is full of people that are probably busy downtown or going to their apartment or whatever. And the parking lot is getting filled with people that have no business at the church at all.
Okay.
What options does the church have?
Private property owners do have the right to enforce parking on their properties. Some downtown merchants sign their parking for exclusive use of their patrons. We don't necessarily encourage that. We would encourage people to park once and shop at multiple places instead of moving their car around from business to business, and I don't think many people do that. But it's really an issue between the private property owner and the folks that are using that lot. Our role, I think, is to understand the parking situation and where we are getting overflow, whether it's from a private development or from the park and ride lot, and try to come up with strategies that can address that and minimize that.
Yeah, we definitely need to look at it. I mean, the parking is an issue, and with all the construction we're going to have, it's going to remain an issue unless we get ahead of this. So I'll be interested to hear what you have to say at the retreat.
Councilmember Sandberg.
Thank you. So on this graph, or this table here, it looks like, if I'm looking at Six Oaks, they have 151 parking spaces, but their total occupancy is 113. Is that correct?
Go ahead and.
So does that means that they have a surplus of parking spaces inside their structured parking garage?
At the time of the count, they had 113 people parking in there, and they have 151 stalls.
Is Six Oaks the only development that charges its residents separately for rent from parking?
No, the 104 and the Village of Beers Crossing also charged.
Okay, and then, but since that time, since those three developments have gone in, we have since passed language that says you, as a development, you cannot charge separately for parking and for rent?
No, we have not. I believe that we have put some language in on purchase and sale agreements. Yes.
Oh, that's right. That's only specific purchase and sale agreements. Could but we wouldn't be able to pass an ordinance that says you can't charge separately, can you? We can control that in our purchase and sale agreement for a property that we own and are selling, but we can't, or can we mandate that?
We haven't looked into that. We haven't been directed to look that direction. I participated in the King County right-size parking study, and best management practices actually encourage what they call uncoupling the charge for rental units and the parking in order to discourage folks that are living in dense areas from storing a lot of cars that they may not need, and to encourage folks who are willing to give up cars. And we know that's a very small percentage, but it's fundamentally unfair to expect those people to subsidize the parking for the folks that do have cars.
Yeah, but I think that, to me, that sounds like a Seattle solution that is applying King County-wide. I mean, we're growing, but we're not dense, and we certainly don't have the transit services. So when I look at this table, I look at Six Oaks, where they've got surplus in their garage. I look at the 104, they've got surplus in their garage. And yet when you look at the graphics where you have weekday and weekend parking, you're not just seeing a Six Oaks effect, you also see a 104 effect. So it's not just a Six Oaks effect, it's a Six Oaks and a 104 effect, which I attribute to the fact that people are not paying for parking, they're parking on street. And now we're looking at, as a city, incurring costs, expense, ongoing monthly expense, if not a capital expense to do paid parking in the future, to subsidize that behavior. And well, I'm not too excited about that. I mean, I thought at one point Six Oaks was talking about its own private parking management company and enforcement company. I absolutely feel for the businesses that are on the ground floor of Six Oaks and nearby, because the parking situation for customers is very limited. And I support the earlier speaker's solution, which is to put a little tape over that Sunday, except Sundays. I think there should be 2-hour parking 24 hours a day. Those residents of Six Oaks could, if they were encouraged to, could park in the City Hall parking garage on Sunday where there's plenty of supply, freeing up all of those spaces in front of those businesses, but they don't have to. And I guess I'm just a little bit more reluctant to continue to go down this path where it's a very specific effect that I think is the outcome of this behavior of not wanting to pay for your parking, because there is supply here. I'm interested about Beardsley Crossing. They seem to have, I know that the on-street, there is no on-street component, so we can't get a true view of their per-bedroom parking rate, but they seem to have an incredible supply of parking available for them. And when that developer built that, he even mentioned that he overparked it on purpose. So we don't see a parking problem around the village at Beardsley Crossing. I'm sure many of us here up on the dais or in the room have patronized the businesses there, and I've never had a parking problem there because they're overparked there, which, you know, overparking isn't necessarily a great thing, but underparking certainly is. And I think there's an effect that we see that are limited to particular properties. You'd mentioned, and I know this is just something in the future, but this idea of park and ride spaces leasing from surplus space from nearby residential developments. Again, that to me is a mechanism of we create surplus by pushing those cars out onto the street. And then as a city, now we're in a position of managing that demand, which is, in my words, synonymous with spending more money to hire either parking enforcement or to put in meters, and I don't support that.
Can I clarify a couple things?
Sure.
I can wait till you're done with your comments, but.
Yeah, no, I have a couple other comments or questions. The paid parking lot issue, that I remember that as well as the deputy mayor, that we rejected that idea because we didn't want those parcels to sit undeveloped and have a financial incentive to do so. But the director mentioned that one of the approaches could be to treat it as a temporary use. And I know that in our sign code, or at one point in our sign code, we have a section on temporary signage, which is a fixed amount of time in a year. Like you can only exceed so many days per year in putting up a temporary sign. Is that an approach that you're describing?
It would work differently than a temporary sign period of time. This would apply for an interim period of time, I would think in terms of months, that there's permitting taking place, maybe design works taking place between one use and another use for a redevelopment situation. That was sort of my thinking. There's a number of different ways to write it, but I wouldn't model it after a temporary sign. No.
Okay. And then, is there a need citywide for paid parking that you're describing, or is it just in downtown?
I think it's mostly in downtown. Yeah, I don't think we've had any other inquiries, or even any kind of input from providers of paid parking indicating they're interested in doing it anywhere else but downtown.
Okay. And then in the graphics where you've got the weekday averages and the weekday peaks, I think in the agenda packet or in the study it says vehicles stayed an average of 2.5 hours, and that was the weekday day that was studied. So when you say vehicles stayed an average of 2.5 hours, do you have data that unpacks that a little bit? You know, like, is there a median? Is there time by hour of the day? Because an average can be very misleading. Somebody could be parked there for 6 hours, and then another person could be in and out in 5 minutes, and an average looks good, but maybe isn't descriptive of what the real parking situation feels like to somebody coming down to downtown and parking.
Yeah, we have how long each individual vehicle stayed that we collected data for. So we have a spreadsheet where we can analyze it in different ways.
Okay. I mean, I think a median time would be a lot more information, have a lot more information. And then back on that parking rate table for the 3 developments, the data that was collected by King County, do you think based on that information, we should be considering a change from the current 0.75 ratio? Parking space per bedroom unit?
This information, if you don't include Beardsley, actually shows that that these 2 developments are pretty close to the 0.75.
So are we looking at like the last column where we would look at a ratio of 0.86 for the 104 and 0.67 for 6 Oaks?
Yes.
I just think that that's so odd that there's a ratio of 0.67 parking spaces per bedroom for 6 Oaks. The data supports that, and yet the worst parking we hear about is right around 6 Oaks.
So we should note that the on-street parking is, because we don't know exactly where they're parking, so this is just reflective of the block's rate around 6 Oaks. So if they're parking further away, they're not captured in this.
Okay.
For example, it wouldn't capture 6 Oaks residential tenants that were parking in City Hall.
So I guess I mean, I remember back when we had the conversation about whether 0.75 parking spaces per bedroom unit was the right number. And I don't know if this data gets us any closer to that answer.
Well, I think it's getting us closer. I think doing the parking counts on-street parking counts around Beardsley Crossing will help complete that picture. And I don't know that it makes sense to shoot exactly for what we're seeing in this utilization. So we will look at what adjustments we could make that are supported by the data. I just wanted to clarify a couple things. Village of Beardsley Crossing was developed not under the downtown plan requirements, under the citywide 2.2 spaces per unit. So it wasn't that the developer, out of the goodness of his heart, overparked it. It was overparked because that was what the requirement was. So we expected to see a lower utilization rate there. And then what King County is looking at in the using what I refer to as surplus parking in residential, that's not parking that's not being utilized at all. It's just they see an opportunity that the residential units, the use is a good shared parking situation with transit use. So when the residents go to work, if they happen to be near a park and ride lot, those spaces are available during the day, and so you get double use of those spaces. And I can get more information about that program between now and the retreat.
All right, it's my turn. Councilmember Freed, did you have questions? Okay. So, did I hear you correctly that private property people can't do parking enforcement on their lots or have paid parking on their lots if they have, a restaurant with parking next door to it?
They can do enforcement, but our code currently doesn't allow them to do hourly paid parking open to the public. They can lease to surrounding uses, but they can't just have an open paid hourly parking rate.
Because I recall that was the difference, I guess, with the lot that was downtown, that was the old Safeway, that there was no other land use there, so that's why they couldn't have paid parking there.
Right.
But otherwise, I thought the code allowed paid parking if you have another land use occurring on the lot.
Yes, as long as that doesn't compromise the use that's on the site. But we've since had another situation where we have a vacant piece of property surrounded by parking on 2 sides, and that's vacant currently, and they tried to do the same thing that Safeway had done, and that's where we've run into that situation.
Okay. So if you had a restaurant with 5 parking stalls, you can put paid parking on those stalls
You could.
if you wanted. Okay.
You could.
So
Well, so you do need to provide for your required parking. But if you have extra and you think that surrounding uses, those patrons would be willing to pay hourly, you can do that.
And so obviously the police department doesn't enforce private property. If somebody parks their car on private property, we don't get involved with that, correct?
Correct.
So they'd have to have a contractor, something with the towing company, and is that their only alternative, would have a towing company come in and haul the car out of there, or can they, a company that actually cites them?
Yeah, there are parking management firms that will monitor and ticket and cars that are not parked there legally.
Do we have that occurring at all? That you know of?
Well, it happens within Six Oaks. They have a private parking management company monitoring the garage parking there. When we first occupied City Hall, we had the same firm monitoring our parking, but determined that wasn't necessary after a period of time. I'm not aware of others that do that.
Do we require a kind of a parking plan or something like that with new construction? Because I've noticed, because I live behind the Beardsley Crossing, up in the neighborhood behind there, and when the construction guys come to work, I mean, it's pretty intense about where they park their car and how far it's out into the lane of travel even. And I'm thinking for the same thing for the church. There's quite a few construction sites, and these people need places to park so they can go do the construction work. Is there anything we can do from that angle to look at or require some sort of, there's usually a, transportation or traffic plan or something like that. Is there anything that we can do from a construction standpoint to make sure they plan for her parking for their construction workers while under construction?
Yes, we do require contractors to provide both a transportation and a parking management plan during the construction process. And our construction inspectors work with the contractors to enforce that. And well, not just the contractors, but surrounding property owners. That they're the ones who get the complaints and then follow up with the contractors to make sure that they're complying. As for private developments, any development that does get a shared parking reduction is required to submit a parking management plan. And that's one of several issues we're working on with the management of Six Oaks to bring them into compliance. But at the same time, we're trying to get them to help out with potentially help out with costs if council does choose to move forward with a parking enforcement, any sort of phased parking enforcement program, because that's one of the areas where we would certainly focus such an effort.
And just because I do live by Beardsley Crossing, there seems to be a huge difference between people parking on the streets to avoid paid parking stalls with their apartment in comparison to what we're seeing happening in the Six Oaks, around the Six Oaks development. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I mean, I drive past there, 4 times a day, maybe more at times, and especially early hours and late hours, and there is nobody parking on the streets there. I mean, maybe there's a couple every once in a while up in the neighborhood, but I mean, nothing like you're seeing down in the Six Oaks area. So there's got to be something different about, I know they have more parking there, but they're still charging for it. So there's got to be something that's happening where they're actually getting people to use their parking stalls instead of parking in the right of way.
I'm sure that is true, but we are getting, our police report that they're getting almost daily complaints from folks living at the bottom end of the Parkhurst development about spillover parking onto the lower streets in Parkhurst from Village of Beardsley Crossing. But again, short of a residential parking permit zone, and that is not a situation that would really warrant it. There's little we can do other than enforcing when cars are parking too close to the corner, that sort of thing.
There's like 2 cars down there. People are calling every day about that. Okay. So since we have the consultant here and you've done this with other cities and probably have seen this quite a few times, I'm just curious, what usually do cities do to navigate through this kind of point, I guess, in our history to try to make sure we have enough parking, we don't require too much parking in development, but at the same time we do preserve the ability to have people able to park on the streets in our city?
Well, I think what you're doing with the study and considering management strategies for on-street is one step. Also, making sure that the developers have some sort of parking plan, and they do a parking study when it's one thing to have the code, but it's another thing to have them actually do a parking study to make sure that what they're going to be providing is going to work, even though you have a code requirement. And then the review of the code requirement, I know there's always growing pains with cities as they evolve and grow. So you might be having a problem now, but as the city densifies, there's that balance that you want to achieve so that you're not having developments provide too much parking, and then in the future, that parking's sitting empty.
So in your professional opinion, the ratio that we're currently requiring development to provide parking, do you feel like it's too low or too high or just right?
Well, based on what we've collected as of right now, it seems to be about right. It is. We've also looked at some other cities, and it's pretty close to what they're providing. We see. I haven't seen much more than 1 per bedroom if you're trying to be progressive.
And do you feel that the incentives, or I guess it's parking reduction incentives like the green building incentives, are those common in other cities?
I haven't seen the green building reduction too much. I think the incentives you want to provide for parking should be connected to achieving a reduction in parking. Providing a green building does not necessarily mean that your tenants are not going to own vehicles. So I think any reduction you provide should be connected with a reason that people aren't going to be parking.
Okay. What else can I ask you while we have you? You're not going to come to the retreat, are you? You can come.
No.
Open. Okay. It's Saturday. It's probably not working. Okay. Well, thank you. So I guess back to Mr. Boyd. So do we require a parking study of new development?
Not of all new development, but as I said, if they do request any shared parking any parking reductions, we can do that. And we're trying to work with them to do so, regardless of whether we have that kind of leverage, just so that we can monitor and better understand the situation. So even if it's just a simple thing about annual reporting of the number of tenants, the number of cars their tenants own, how many spaces they are actually collecting money for, and that sort of thing. We're asking for that for all developments.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to discussing this further with you on February 4th. Is it right? Yeah, February 4th.
And any specific items of additional items of information that you're interested in?
Well, I'd really like to know what other cities kind of did in the progression of it. You know, do people usually start off with the good cop and then become bad cop scenario, whatever you call it, the ambassador model, or do they go straight to meters? How many do metering in the, I understand Seattle and Tacoma do meters, but how many other cities of our size actually have a metered parking system? I see that it's less expensive, but at the same time, it just kind of, I don't want to carry change around. I guess you can use the credit card nowadays too.
Most
but-
use credit cards, and many use pay-by-phone options. So yeah, we can bring more information on that. We're already looking at what Kirkland and Redmond are doing, and they're probably the most comparable jurisdictions nearby here.
And they're doing the bad cop thing, right? Where they're just enforcing.
Kirkland is pursuing more of a cost recovery approach. Redmond has been pursuing an ambassador approach.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
I'd like to, since staff would like us to reconsider the paid parking option, I'd like to have more information about which specific properties and for how long, you know, timeline that we're looking at. If we're looking at a small problem that might make our a small time-limited problem that might make our decision easier, but if it's larger, then maybe not.
Especially for the construction projects, because I'm telling you, it's amazing how many cars those projects bring, you know, it just takes up tons of parking. Okay. Oh, Councilmember Freed, sorry about that.
Great. Thank you for coming this evening. I appreciate the conversation. This is a great sign of a city that is growing and has been growing. We've planned the downtown over a 10-year period, and now we're seeing things coming out of the ground and citizens move here. So it's an exciting time. It's actually what we planned for. And it's a great sign. People like going to Amaro or Social Grounds. We have the owners here this evening. I appreciate you being here, and I would encourage you to continue to be part of this conversation, because we need to hear from you directly of your concerns and your ideas, because you experience it daily. We might experience once a week or twice a week or whatever it might be regarding coming downtown and finding a parking spot. I think about Main Street and the improvements that we planned there over many years, and now after applying for a grant last year, we got the $4.6 million this year to help the improvement of parking on Main Street. Think of the very building that we're sitting in right now. We had a hard fight over many years trying to push the City Hall forward. Many people complained about the parking that we were going to include in this building, but thankfully the council at that time pushed forward so we could have ample parking to provide for the excess needs that we have. So we are celebrating that decision today as we sit here and citizens are able to find free parking within the building that they pay for. It's their building and they have the right to do so. I think about the Popkini shared agreement. We have McMinimans, which I think every city in our region would die to have within their city limits. And it took many years of negotiating to get McMinimans here, and thankfully they are here. And it's a thriving place for all of us to go to and enjoy as citizens. And you can see the overflow is working really well with the school district to go into the Popkini parking area. We have a city we were very integral in that conversation. I think about the campus that we have. People would just salivate to have University of Washington, Bothell, and Cascadia within their city limits. We have that. It's a wonderful advantage that we have sitting on what was the Truly Farm. We have a beautiful environment there that was restored, and now we also have parking that's serving all the students that are going there, and it's full and it's vibrant. We have about 10,000 FTEs. We can go up to about 15,000, so we'll continue to see growth. I think a lot of the pressure that we're seeing today is a result of the construction that we see going in downtown. We have the Junction under construction. We've had Six Oaks under construction. We have the Boulevard under construction, which in itself is adding a substantial amount of parking on both sides of the street. The plan is not completed. The plan is underway. We are a city in growth. I don't think that we're a place of economic catastrophe. I think we're at a place of grand excitement. So I know it's uncomfortable for people who've experienced pulling in front of their store of preference and immediately finding a parking spot. Now we're having to walk maybe a block, if that, at times to be able to find that parking. But again, I think that's a very positive sign, a city that has been well planned and one that people are coming to, not just our citizens, but now we're a destination city where people from Woodinville and Kirkland, Breyer, and other places are coming to be part of what we have planned. So I'm excited about it. My question would be, is the level that we're seeing, is it normal or is it an epidemic? I heard you say, ma'am, it sounds like we might be at a normal level, but it's right for us to consider what right things we should have in place. So as we do continue to grow as a city, that we are keeping this in check. I'm just positive. I'm excited about it and glad to be here with council. In regards to any direction for Dave when you come back, I would think of more just signs for 2-hour parking. I would not be in favor of having metered meters that people have to pay throughout the city of Bothell. I think that would encourage people to go to Woodinville, Kirkland, and Redmond. I would rather have people coming here because we all know the plan for the downtown was to create a sense of place for us to come and gather to be together. But it was also to create a place for people to spend their money so that sales tax revenue can go to support our police and our fire, public safety. And we're seeing that today, and I'm excited about it. So I, again, lean toward signs, and I lead toward more an ambassador approach rather than something that would be strict enforcement. But I think in time, maybe in 4 or 5 or 6 years, that could be something that we consider more of a strict enforcement plan. Thanks for the time.
All right, so we'll see you February 4th.
All right, look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks. So the next thing on our agenda is the city manager or council committee reports. You have a report, I'm sure, right, on your first day?
I do. It's about 3 pages long.
Okay, go ahead.
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor has a committee report.
Yes, I just wanted to briefly report, Councilmember McNeil and I hosted at Bothell City Hall a regional meeting with stakeholders for the I-405 North area. We had really great attendance. We had a council member from Snohomish County. We had new senator-elect, or he's not elect, new Senator Palumbo, new legislator or Representative Shelley Kloba, and a number of mayors and council members from surrounding cities to have a discussion about really lobbying for some state dollars around fixing what looks like a proposal for about $900 million to fix the I-405 lanes and access ramps from 522 up to I-5. And then also, in addition, asking for some additional parking on 405 for the new BRT. We had a really great response. Everyone was very supportive, and so we'll be putting together a letter for people to sign on to request dollars for both of those things.
The committee king. You got some committee reports, I'm sure, Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. So mine are pretty quick, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for setting that meeting up. That's going to be fabulous for the North End cities and East and West also to be included in that. I had Seashore committee meeting I attended. One of the presentations in this meeting was the Transportation Futures Task Force, which is made up of current and past elected officials who looked at regional transportation issues growth over the next 30 years. And they have a final report of some of their recommendations, which I'm going to go ahead and forward on to council, but we should probably have a presentation, I would think, sometime in the near future from them on what some of those recommendations are and how they can help us here in Bothell. That same presentation happened at our ETP, Eastside Transportation Committee, this month. One of the other presentations was Metro Services, which are some of the new changes to Metro Services throughout the East Side, and including Bothell, which I think we should also have that presentation in front of council. PIC, this PIC meeting we had, we talked about legislative priorities. Again, I will send the agenda and the minutes to council, but I think we should all take a close look at some of the other cities' legislative priorities before we go to Olympia, so that we make sure that the legislative priorities that we're presenting, we can kind of see what other cities are presenting as well and kind of bridge that message. And the reason I bring that up is because in PIC we discussed PIC's legislative agenda, which is slightly different than the cities, as well as AWC, Association of Washington Cities, which has some additional legislative agendas. So I'm not sure the process that in which we handle this, but those of us who are going to be going to Olympia, it would be important for us to have a very similar message when we're going and speaking in front of our legislators, and make sure that we have a good list of legislators that we're going to go to so that we spend our time wisely when we are in Olympia. The next thing I would bring up is Auburn Police. We learned during the PIC that the Auburn Police Department is now working with drones within their city. And Renton is currently working on a process to do that as well. Issaquah reported a very high theft on front doors during the holiday season, and they partnered with a company called Ring to loan video doorbells out during the holiday season and have the community actually as the activists that are reporting the crimes that are happening. So something we can look into for the future as well. And then lastly, I'm happy to report that Deputy Mayor, you're now assigned, I think you mentioned this before, to the Domestic Violence Regional Task Force. Thank you for stepping up on that. And unfortunately, I guess, but fortunately for me, I have been added to the Law and Safety Justice Task Force. So I'm happy about that as well, so we can make sure that our voice here in Bothell is heard. And then Deputy Mayor, I think you were interested in making sure that we're part of a regional transportation committee. PIC actually just announced today that there is a PSRC seat available on that regional transportation. I think that would be fabulous for you to possibly take a look at. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, any other committee reports? Councilmember Sandberg?
So I am new to the Metropolitan Solid Waste Management Advisory Committee. I think we call it MSWAC. And usually I don't do committee reports, but I think this one is really important because we're going to have to be vigilant to a potential action item that might be coming our way, and the public is not at all aware of what is ahead for changes in solid waste management. And so King County currently operates 8 solid waste transfer stations, and one of them, Houghton, is scheduled to close, I think, in 2021. It's an agreement that King County has had with Kirkland and the Houghton neighborhood that this site was eventually going to close. And obviously, when one transfer site closes, that creates a demand on other transfer sites. And so at the meeting, we have representatives from many of the cities, and there's not a single focused agreement on moving forward. There are the cities that have transfer stations, like for example, Tukwila and Shoreline. They're concerned about the additional traffic that's going to come their way when Houghton closes. The cities that are travel-through points to those locations are concerned. So those cities, some of those cities feel like we shouldn't do any kind of studies. We should just move forward with picking a new transfer station site, which is not only expensive, but would be located in Northeast King County. And then there are other cities who say, well, wait a minute, maybe we can handle the solid waste load minus one station. We should do something called a demand management study, which is a lot like what you do with tolling, is that you manage the demand to the system by charging more at peak times. And some of our, well, I don't want to name names because everybody was so diplomatic and didn't want to throw anybody under the bus during these committee meetings. But you know, one of our neighbors already has a major transfer station site that's it's a privately owned facility, so it's not part of King County system. But again, it's a lot of traffic for their community, so they don't feel like, you know, they should be considered for a new site. So I guess why I'm bringing this up is we had a meeting last Friday. No action was taken. We're going to have another meeting in February. I'm not sure if action will be taken, but I need to know from council at some point how do you want me to present Bothell's position? Right now, I feel like we should support a demand management study. So I don't think we can just assume that because the region is growing, we're going to generate more garbage and therefore we need a new transfer station. So at this point, I think we need a demand management study. Our staff has been very vocal in shaping what that demand management study should look like, and I think that's really important. We had a presentation from Sabrina Combs and from the Solid Waste Management Director a couple months ago about that. But if you feel differently, then maybe we should discuss that. And then also know when King County is looking for a northeast location, well, Bothell is northeast. And so we need to be on top of any of those kind of discussions as well.
So, Public Works Director, could you have a staff presentation of some sort in one of these lesser busy council meetings soon to give us kind of the
Certainly.
city,
Yes, absolutely.
the staff recommended position on all that?
Sure.
Does that sound good? Okay. Any other community reports? Seeing none. No executive session? Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Agnew, seconded by Councilmember McNeil. Any discussion on the motion? No? Go ahead and place your motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and place your vote.
We are adjourned 6-0.
We're adjourned.